Yeah, so this is what I was going to say. It rained all week. We thought it was going to be 2 mutters in a row, right? Because MetLife was insane. It was amazing how not muddy it was, but it was very slick and muddy. But I just wanted to point out, because I thought it was funny, because I already edited this part of the video for this week, but all the interviews in the morning and stuff, when we first got there, you were getting geared up. You didn't talk about track walk at all. And then you have your helmet on, and right when you left the tent to walk to the stadium, and I have this all recorded because you had a mic in your helmet, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't know what the track looks like. And then Dan goes to, and this is such a funny part of the video that's already in there. Dan goes, yeah, there's like, a rhythm section, then right-hander, dragon's back, whoops, left. And then there's another side. It was awesome.
Wow. Yeah. And what's funny is that's comical, but that is literally a real thing. That is not acting.
Didn't know what it looked like.
That is what happened. So all things considered, and I had to learn the track in the mud. I tell you what, dude, things are different now. Just different mindset. I go through the day on race day different. Like, I didn't get nervous. I didn't freak out about it. That's a really difficult situation to overcome if you think about it. Muddy track, not seeing the track, trying to learn it quickly. Didn't ride during the week because we're nomads and we move all the time now, and I haven't been riding since Detroit. And still felt great on the bike. I'm just like able to mentally kind of trick myself into not thinking that it's been so long, or that I'm starting to get rusty, or that, maybe I'm a little more out of breath than normal. Overall, felt good. First time practice. Wasn't I top 10 after first time practice?
First time practice, you were 10th, yeah.
That's amazing.
That's insane. And how muddy was the track? It looked like the hard base and slop on top. Is that what it was, or? Yeah,
so these conditions, it was clay. It didn't look like bright orange Georgia clay, but it is 100% clay. Almost looks like the clay that somebody, like in art class or whatever, like you would be spinning the thing and making artwork. What the heck is it called?
Clay.
Clay, yeah, I guess
pottery?
clay. Is that what it is? Pottery. Pottery. It looks like exactly what you would use for pottery. So when it's wet, it's grease. It basically turns into grease. So it's super slippery. But immediately, even in first practice, in the spots that it was starting to tack up and dry out just a little bit, just enough to tack up, it was forming clumps and sticking together really, really, really hard and tight. So even one of the track workers came up to me and he asked how the track was. Dan from what is 10th Street in New Jersey.
Street. Psych.
And
wait, what?
Yeah. He's one of the Dirtworks guys.
That's why he looked so familiar.
He asked how it was. And I'm like, is it hard to get the equipment across this? And he's like, dude, it's sticking to everything. Like it's sticking to the tracks, it's sticking to the blade. Which then creates it peels back layers of the dirt and it creates clumps. All things considered, they did a pretty good job with it during the day, but it was a weird track to ride. So in that first time qualifier, it was tacking up just enough to where it was creating bumps. And I'm not talking like gentle braking bumps, like the most harsh bumps, as if you were just running into curbs the entire time, all the way around the corners, so much so that you couldn't sit until the corner was over with in a lot of spots, like before the dragon's back and after the finish line. And it was a really janky feeling track for that first time qualifier, which would probably explain why I got 10th. Because I remember looking around in that practice and there was a bike cart wheeling to my left, there's red cross flags out to my right, there's yellow flags out in this corner. And I'm like, whoa, people are all over the place. And that's typically when I tend to excel, just because I think I end up being a little less all over the place in those situations. The technique kind of takes over and I can just be steady Eddie and super consistent, which is great. It's a testimonial to the technique. But 10th in that, felt great. Backed up my 10th place time with 3 times that were within 0.4 of a second or 0.3 of a second. So that's probably more so than even the lap time that is a sign of comfort and that is a sign of confidence. And that's a good sign that the race is going to go well that night. So for example, if I qualified 10th, I had 3 times that would have also qualified me in like the top 12. Where usually guys' second times in some situations could drop off a second or 2 or 3 seconds. And basically, that they just got that one lap in almost as like a Hail Mary, or just that they're not able to be as consistent, where I was just ticking off laps on a really beat up track, which was great. So that gave me a boost of confidence, which is always helpful and always nice. Third time qualifier. This is when they groom the track. So this is typically, along with the heat race, the best that you'll see the track all day. But it was still, keep in mind, it's a day race, so the sun's beating on it. It wasn't super hot, but it was warm enough to be drying up. And same situation where it's drying up. Now we have really hard packed dry spots that are actually creating dust. Then you have the spots that are tacking up just enough to be the hardened clumps. And you still have a couple of spots that are greasy. So now you're dealing with those 3 variables in that third practice, which was difficult for that because they had tried to groom some. So it was like you're trying to attack the track more because times were dropping by a couple seconds. And the track was hairy. The track was definitely hairy. Dragon's Back was getting gnarly, which you guys saw in the night show. A bunch of guys were crashing on it. And the whoops were getting gnarly too because where they were cupping, it was a normal cup, but with it being that clay, it was the most harsh cup ever. So the difference would be when you build whoops in California or most hard-packed locations, they're drying up and they harden basically immediately. So that's when you get blue groove, where you just have a whoop that's polished off. It might chunk a tiny, tiny bit, but it's more so just polished. Since this track was built very likely in the rain, or it rained right after it was built, you're getting those chunks out. But then when it hardens, it kind of blue grooves with the hardened chunks. So it's creating like these crazy pointy edges, making it just really, really difficult to ride. And what I was doing in time qualifying too is I was leaving it in third gear because I was getting lazy. I was hitting the turn was all screwed up. So I wasn't able to get my shift to fourth for the Dragon's Back, which I should have been. And then if I didn't get the shift to fourth in the Dragons, I really should have been getting my fourth when I caught air jumping off the Dragons. And because I was hitting the Dragon's Back in third and revving out, I was getting popped weird coming off of the lip. So I was either getting kicked into an endo, or a couple times I was getting kicked into a loop out a little bit. And then I would get lazy and in that, not get my upshift to fourth. So now I'm skimming the whoops every lap in fourth in that time qualifier, and bike is just dancing everywhere. Overall, I end up qualifying, 15th?
15, yeah.
15th. But again, a whole bunch of those times, super consistent. I felt great about it. I didn't feel like I was riding over my head. I felt confident. And 15th is good enough to get a good gate pick. Actually, it's in fact one of the last spots that you'd want to qualify to get a really good gate pick for the heat.
Yeah, because you want top 7 gates.
You really want top 7. Top 8, yeah, that's okay. Top 9, it's like, you're running out of good gate options.
Right.
Top 7, pretty much any gate that you have option to in top 7 is going to be good. And that ends up being the difference maker because you can place yourself, and I never really thought about it that much, to be quite honest, which is weird. But that's the difference maker. I lined up right to the right in the heat race of J-Mart, and I had a horrible exit of the gate, which might have been the reason that location was left open until 7th gate pick, is because as soon as you cross the plastic, deep dip, and then a hole, and it was hardened. So I'm like, oh boy, this is gonna be weird. Gate drops, I get a good jump, but I wheelie a little bit, but not much. I manage it super well, keep my chest down, and I keep driving forward. And J-Mart, I was probably a half bike length behind him coming into the first turn. Maybe I was a full bike length behind him. He gave me a ton of room, which was really quite nice and just mature of him, I guess. He didn't feel like he needed to close the gap super aggressively and like put me and the 3 or 4 guys to my right into the tough blocks, which is what most people unfortunately do. And so what it created is when I got to the first turn, I just had a wide open inside. And I just jetted around the inside really fast. I think I actually ended up getting a wheel in front of J-Mart. And then we went through the rhythm. He went back by me, but I was in a perfect spot. And then first couple of laps, I was right behind young guy on the Rockstar Husky. I always forget his name.
Hawkins. Talon Hawkins.
Talon Hawkins. And Henry Miller, and I want to say Hicks. Michael Hicks? Is that his first name? 460?
Sure.
He's fast.
No idea.
I think he was up there. So I was right behind those three. And the way that the young guy, Hawkins on the Husky, was riding the other guys, I just knew that something was going to happen. He was riding too aggressive. He was trying to make passes in spots that didn't necessarily make sense. And I'm like, oh boy, he's going to take somebody out, or even better yet for me, he's going to take them both out. So I was just chilling. I didn't really feel much pressure from behind. I can't remember who was behind me, but it wasn't an urgent situation. At least I didn't feel. And I just hung out there for a couple laps. And sure enough, after the finish, Hawkins rides in super aggressive on one of the Hondas that was in front of me. Doesn't take him down, but hits him hard enough to where he takes himself down. And then I think Henry Miller rides up over him and they both crash. And I'm like, bingo, 2 spots. That bumps me up to 7th or whatever the heck it was, 8th. And at that point, nobody behind me. It created a barrier of nobody behind me. And that's exactly how you want a heat race to go. So I just cruised the rest of the time. Dan never gave me this. This is usually the sign of, hey dude, you got a ton of space. He never gave me this. He must have forgot. But I was pretty sure, I kept looking back. I'm like, I think I have a bunch of space behind me. And then I even saw that guy. I'm like, I think he's got a bunch of space behind him. So I just cruised it, which is a nice feeling. Again, from the first time I qualified straight out of a heat or just qualified for the main period this season, and how exhausted I was compared to these last few. It's not that I've gotten in better shape, because I've in fact gotten in worse shape, but I think I just am believing that I belong in the main more, so I'm chilling out. When I'm in the situations where I'm in a position to where I can make it and should make it, I'm just chill and relaxed, and it just makes it so that I can hold on more loosely and breathe, which is nice. So straight through the main at the last race, I was so pumped, because what's happened in the past, and I think I talked about this a little bit on camera throughout the day, is I would be complacent. It'd be the last race of the year, many of which in my career, those races were in Vegas. And I'm just like, you know what? We made it a healthy season. Vegas was always a hard pack, kind of sketchy track for me. Why push it? Why push it? And in my head, in Nashville, I told myself that wouldn't happen. I don't want to be reckless, of course. I need to stay safe, but I do not want to fall into that route of that mindset of being complacent. I want to push to the end. I want to give these guys full effort, because I continue to see it week in and week out, like Mechanic Dan, how much work he puts in. It's crazy. It's crazy. The dude, he's paying for a lot of stuff out of his own pocket, and he works like a madman. And I trust him. So I'm grateful that I trust him to be working on the bike. And I don't take that lightly. You have Driver Jamie, who, shout out Driver Jamie. Dude's getting stupid famous.
Dude, he really is.
I mean, he signed a toy van this weekend.
That's the ultimate.
Can you believe that?
That's probably the best moment so far.
Somebody came up to him with a toy Sprinter van and he signed his van. Shout out Driver Jamie. Like, he puts in so much work. And again, he's a retired military, retired firefighter. He is on our payroll, but it's not enough to justify how much work he puts in, not even close. So with that, I'm like, I don't feel the pressure, but I feel it necessary to put in full effort. And unless there's a real legitimate reason, like a rain situation in a race in Tampa or something like that, where it's like, let's not, because there's a very high likelihood I will get myself messed up. Outside of that, on a day that I feel comfortable, like Nashville, we're gonna put in full effort here. So for me, it was like I felt proud that I could end the season that way. And 18th in the main, rode hard the whole time. I was completely exhausted. It was hot. The track was beat up. I found a couple of new lines that I didn't do all day because the old lines went away because it got so rutted. So I was proud of all the little things that I did in the main. The guys that beat me didn't beat me because I was just rolling around. They beat me because they were just a little bit faster than me in spots, which is good because like I said, at the beginning of this year in the main events, it was a couple of good laps and then see ya, just toast. And then, halfway through the race, Hunter comes by to lap me right at the mechanics area. And this was funny too. I talked to Cameron about it at the bar after the race. We go past the mechanics area and I'm just, could you see it from wherever you were? I'm just fist pumping and cheering on Hunter and yelling. And his mechanic, Cameron, at the bar, he goes, "Yeah, dude, I had the pit board put out there, but then I saw you and how hard you were cheering for him, and I just pulled the pit board back in." It just said, he's got this lap. He's got it taken care of.
Oh my gosh.
Which, that's epic. That's hilarious. So Hunter goes by and I continue about my business. I have the last 7 minutes of the race, whatever it is. By the way, he caught up and lapped me fast. And he's coming by to lap me a second time, which again, for how well I rode, I can't believe that he almost lapped me twice. That's incredible.
Dude, it was championship day for Hunter. He's going to lap you as many times as he wants.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was on another level.
Oh, I mean, he must have been to almost lap me twice on a day where I was riding fairly well. That's insane. So I get the 2 lap. No, there is no 2 lap to go. That's halfway. I know there's 2 laps to go somehow. Oh, because I'm watching the countdown timer at this point because I'm so tired. I'm watching the big tower countdown. I know it's going to be white flag. As I'm going up the finish line for my white flag, I peek to my right and Hunter's coming down the straightaway. He's the next bike after me. And so what that means is that I don't have to finish my last lap. I will still get 18th.
Yeah.
So in the air over the finish line, I do that quick, just make that decision, go, okay, there's nobody behind. I'm pretty sure I don't have to ride this lap. I won't get a DNF. I'll still get 18th. And I'll be the first one to see Hunter to congratulate him. So I land, I turn, and I sit up on the triple face, and Hunter lands a second and a half after me. As I'm going up the triple face, I watch as close in a front row seat as possible him going over the finish with the fireworks going off, celebrating the championship, like literally, like right to my left as I'm going up the triple face. He is right there. Turns left, comes up to me, and he was just crying. He just gave me a hug and was crying. And I think the only things he just said, "Thank you, Albert," which is funny. I just love that those guys still call me Albert. But so cool. And the fact that later that night he told me that I was the person he was happy to see there sitting on that triple is what a freaking way to end the season.
If you guys enjoyed this podcast clip and you want to listen to full episodes, go download them. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I think that's it. Go download them there, give them a listen. If you want to watch full episodes, which I tell you what, it's even better to do that, go to club.themotoacademy.com because Moto Academy subscribers inside of the app have exclusive access to watch the entire episodes. And not only that, the subscribers actually can send in their questions to be answered on the podcast as well. Club.themotoacademy.com. Go subscribe.